Last year, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints made available for the first time an 1886 revelation from John Taylor that prophesied that the new and everlasting covenant, which he and others at the time interpreted as polygamy, would never disappear, only 4 years before the LDS Church publicly renounced the practice. In case you forgot, this revelatory document that just appeared on the church's catalog in June of 2025 caused quite a big firestorm of people reacting, that the fundamentalist community feeling vindicated, and many LDS apologists having to now recenter their claims of how this revelation fit in, because the LDS institution itself, for a long time, had denounced that revelation as fake, or as J. Reuben Clark put it in the official narrative, pretend revelation. However, scholars had long mostly believed that the revelation existed. And while this release of the document, with it just appearing on the catalog page without much fanfare, prompted lots of questions, we are only now, months later, able to have some scholarly interpretations of and integrations of this document into scholarly analysis. Now, I did a number of videos on this revelation when it became public, one here on the YouTube channel and a few on my various social media accounts. But I also frequently said in those videos that we're going to have to wait and see, and that the most exciting thing is that now that scholars will have access to the original revelation, we'll be able to dig into the document and have more takeaways. Well, that day has finally come, or at least the day for the first scholarly interpretations and digging into the document has come, because the latest issue of Journal of Mormon History, here's the cover image, just put out its latest issue, which has a forum with 4 scholarly essays, including one from yours truly. And while I can't brag on my essay in the forum, I really appreciated the other 3, which were authored by 3 of the leading scholars in the various fields that this revelation touches on. And further, we now have a few more months to digest this news and have more measured and calculated responses, and also to consider its consequences. So in this video, I want to revisit John Taylor's 1886 revelation and its broader context, and take into account these new scholarly responses. So I'll talk about the John Taylor revelation. Then I'm going to interview Christopher Jones, who is a professor of history at BYU and is the editor of the Journal of Mormon History, about this about this issue's roundtable. And then I also want to check in with the fundamentalist community and how they are responding. So I will then interview Moroni Jessup, who was part of the fundamentalist community for much of his adulthood. And then at the very end, I will wrap things up and I will announce a book giveaway, because the Journal of Mormon History very kindly offered a copy of this issue to share. So more details at the end, which should be an enticement to listen all the way through. All right, let's dig into the topic. Before we get to the new Journal of Mormon History issues roundtable, let's at least have a bit of a background on the John Taylor revelation. At least a brief things that you need to know going forward. But I strongly recommend going to check my previous video on this very topic, because I do a deep dive on the context, its creation, and the legacies. I'll put a link to that video in the video descriptions. Now, John Taylor was the president and prophet of the LDS Church during the 1880s, and in 1886, he was on the underground, meaning he was a fugitive from justice, hiding from an arrest warrant. This was a time that the U.S. government was trying to prosecute and imprison those practicing polygamy. But rather than giving in to polygamy, John Taylor and other LDS leaders were doubling down, saying that polygamy was a core doctrine, equating it with the new and everlasting covenant, a linguistic overlap that was not always consistent, but was quite common. There were some in the LDS Church, however, who were pushing for leaders like John Taylor to concede and move on and allow some stability within the LDS Church, otherwise dangerous things might happen. So during this climactic moment, John Taylor was hiding at the home of John Woolley, one of a handful of homes where he hid during the 1880s. And it is there that he wrote this revelation in his hand. Here is the revelatory document. You can see the handwriting is rather light, but importantly, it's in his own hand. He didn't dictate it to others. It is in his own voice. It says that the new and everlasting covenant would never be rescinded. Now, some have come out and said, well, the new and everlasting covenant isn't polygamy, isn't plural marriage. Well, now it's not in the LDS tradition, and it wasn't always consistently that overlap. But internal textual and contextual clues make it clear that the new and everlasting covenant, as John Taylor was using it in the 1886 revelation, was about polygamy. For instance, in the text itself, it's saying that there are others trying to make the new and everlasting covenant go away. Well, there wasn't a push for the Latter-day Saints to just give away eternal sealings. There was a push for them to give up polygamy. And second, during these 1880s, John Taylor increasingly came to equate the new and everlasting covenant with polygamy, giving other revelations. This was not the only revelation John Taylor dictated, giving other revelations saying that you could not enter into the highest degree of the celestial kingdom without entering into polygamy. Importantly, John Taylor writes this revelation, never presents it to church leadership, and further never presents it to the church. Unlike other revelations that did get added to the LDS canon, at least momentarily. There are fewer Europeans, non-English translations of the Doctrine and Covenants that included a revelation that John Taylor dictated in 1882 on similar topics. So in the aftermath, after John Taylor dies the next year, John W. Taylor finds this revelation among his father's papers and presents it to the Quorum of the 12. So the Quorum of the 12 knew about the revelation. It then became a key text in John W. Taylor's excommunication a couple decades later, around 1910, when John Taylor, who had already been dropped from the Quorum of the 12 for not being willing to endorse Joseph F. Smith's Second Manifesto, a topic I've done a video on before as well, and John Taylor saying, I need to stand by my father and his revelatory document. And then when the Fundamentalist movement starts coalescing in the 1920s and 1930s, this revelation became a core part of their original myths, their original stories. And I'm using myths in the religious sense, not in the debunking sense. That it was a core part, that John Taylor had an 8-hour visitation with Jesus Christ and Joseph Smith, that he dictates his revelation, and importantly, also ordained a secret council of priesthood holders who would continue the practice of polygamy even if the LDS Church gave it up. In response to these polygamous claims, the LDS Church came out and denied the revelation's existence, and in a 1933 First Presidency statement that I'll talk about a bit later, said that as a pretended revelation and was not real. Ever since that point, you get two stories: the Fundamentalists, who insisted that the revelation existed, and the LDS Church, who either denied its existence or downplayed its centrality. There was notably in recent years a reluctant concession on LDS Church's part. In fact, the Church's own Saints volume, as part of their institutional history series, acknowledged or at least hinted that the revelation might be real, and you had more scholars employed by the LDS Church also implying that it might be real, and then the revelation just appeared on the Church's catalog in June of 2025. Before I go any further, my awkward though necessary pitch for this channel: if you enjoy this type of deep and nerdy analysis, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I try to do deep dives on a topic every Monday. I try to connect the past to the present every Wednesday, and I talk about historiography and how historians make their content every Friday, like this one, where I'm going behind the scenes of this Journal of Mormon History Roundtable. So I'm trying to bridge the worlds of academic history and the general public. And if you want to give back, and I'm so grateful for the many of you who have chosen to give back, you can become a member of this channel, where for a very nominal fee, you can get early access to the videos, you get a little icon next to your names, and you get the satisfaction knowing that you were helping this channel continue with the work put in by both myself and my wonderful producer, Anthony. I also recommend subscribing to my free kit newsletter, a link to which you will find in the video description, which allows you to keep up with all my activities on different platforms and upcoming events and news and a variety of different things. And if you are watching this video soon after its publication, Know that I will be in Salt Lake City on Tuesday, January 27th. The great folks at Benchmark Books have arranged for me to sign some copies of my various books, and I'll also be recommending to you what other books in their wonderful bookstore you should be picking up. All right, all of that stuff out of the way, let's get back to 1886, or at least how we're interpreting 1886. Let's now turn our attention to the new Journal of Mormon History issue that has a roundtable on this topic. So here you see the table of contents from the new issue and how it has 4 essays from Martha Bradley Evans on Revelation. Martha Bradley Evans is one of the leading icons in the field of Mormon history. She's written a number of important books, including Kidnapped from the Land, which is a book on the origins of the Fundamentalist movement and Short Creek, as well as an excellent biography of Joseph Smith's Nauvoo years, where she also dealt with polygamy. The second essay is from Christina Galliano, formerly known as Christina Rossetti, talking about how this text has been interpreted both within the fundamentalist context as well as by historians, and how this revelation now, or the acknowledgement of the revelation's existence, both vindicates some of the fundamentalist narratives while leaving others still up for question. The third essay is from Seth Perry, who is a Princeton scholar of religion focused on scriptural texts. He wrote a phenomenal book on religious texts in early America, and he's been looking at John Taylor as revelator, so he looks at the revelatory language of the text compared to others. And then the final essay is from yours truly, where I talk about another document that the church made available with the John Taylor revelation, which was a 1933 memorandum authored by J. Reuben Clark about how they took the text into their possession and how it awkwardly fit J. Reuben Clark's vision. I'll talk more about that in a bit. But to talk about this forum, I am privileged to talk with Dr. Christopher Jones. Dr. Christopher Jones is an assistant professor of history at Brigham Young University. He has a forthcoming book from Cornell University Press on Methodism in the Revolutionary Era, and he's also been an expert in Mormon history. He and I go way back. We were students at BYU together. We long had visions of having integral roles in the Mormon History Association, so it feels so fitting now that he is the editor of the association's journal, and I am the president of the Mormon History Association for this year. So without further ado, let's get to the interview with Dr. Jones. All right, and now I am very pleased to be joined with my old friend. We go all the way back to BYU. He is now the editor of Journal of Mormon History. Welcome to the video, Dr. Christopher Jones.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I'm excited to be here.
So, Chris, why don't you tell me what's the origins of this roundtable? How did it come about, and how was it constructed?
Yeah, really good question. So I guess there's maybe kind of 2 origin points for this. Number one is that last June, the Church History Library added to their online digital catalog a couple of copies of the oft-disputed September 1886 revelation from John Taylor, in which he claims in the voice of the Lord that the new and everlasting covenant, understood to mean plural marriage, is eternal and would never be revoked. Taylor received this revelation while on the Mormon underground, hiding from federal authorities. And one of those copies that was released by the Church History Library was written in Taylor's own hand. And this had long been rumored to exist. It had been, copies of it had circulated especially in fundamentalist or polygamous circles later in the 19th century and 20th century. But the church releasing it proved to be a pretty big deal. And then alongside that, they released a couple of other documents. One was a typescript copy from Joseph Fielding Smith in 1909, I think. And then finally, a 1933 memorandum, I think is what they classify it as, from President J. Reuben Clark, a member of the church's first presidency, interrogating the provenance of the document and mostly denying not just its authenticity, but its very existence as an authoritative document of any sort. More proximately, the roundtable came about because our mutual friend and the excellent independent scholar, Christina Galliani, perfect, I appreciate it, thank you, who studies polygamy and Mormon fundamentalism, reached out to me, I think within hours of the document's release, and inquired about the possibility of publishing a roundtable in the Journal of Mormon History. I told her that we would be thrilled to do that, and the 2 of us went to work brainstorming potential participants, contributors to that roundtable. that could maybe offer various insights from multiple different angles or perspectives. And so we landed on Christina. She definitely wanted to participate. Martha Bradley Evans, the emeritus professor at the University of Utah, who's a renowned scholar of Mormonism and Mormon polygamy. Seth Perry, who teaches religion at Princeton University and is a really fine scholar of sacred texts and religion and material culture. And then lastly, because we couldn't find anybody else, you.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel there. I understand. And just to correct myself, it's Galliano, not Galliani.
Oh, Galliano. Yeah, you're right.
So my apologies to Christina. So what do you think are some of the big takeaways that you took from this forum? What are the big points that a general public interested in the John Taylor Revelation are going to learn from reading it?
Yeah, so I think each contributor sort of offers a lot to readers, right? And there should be something there for everybody, but I think everybody would benefit from reading the several essays together. So the panel opens, the roundtable opens with Martha Bradley Evans, and she analyzes the concepts of prophetic authority and revelatory language in Mormon history, providing sort of important historical perspective on the 1886 revelation, in making the argument that it functions as this important turning point, maybe the determining point in the transition from what she calls Joseph Smith's era of plurality to that of the fundamentalist Mormons who took up the cause in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Christina is next, and she examines both sort of the long history and the provenance of the documents at hand, looking less at their origins, but more among their circulation, both in fundamentalist Mormon circles in the early 20th century, but also among Latter-day Saint historians, looking at how church historians like Leonard Arrington dealt with the document when it crossed their desks or when they investigated it. And she notes in this really provocative way that I thought about summarizing in my own words, but I'm just going to quote from her because I think this is really, really sort of an excellent piece of writing. She notes in conclusion that in the contemporary archive, the ghosts of the past become reminders, warnings, and entities that call out for justice. The spirits of the past, embodied in the documents that tell their story, continually punctuate the present across multiple centuries, demanding a response from those living in the present. The emergence of the 1886 revelation from the archive is precisely the specter of Mormonism that calls for a reevaluation of how post-manifesto history was constructed and who counted as a historian of Mormonism's past. And the point she's trying to make there, I think, is that fundamentalist Mormons who circulated this, who made copies of it, who published copies of it, did the world a great service by producing historical documents that historians could make use of, right? The release by the church last June may have been a surprise to nearly everybody, but the document's existence has not been disputed by those fundamentalist Mormons since the document's inception. So Christina's essay is then followed by Seth Perry's, who considers the Revelation as one of several genres of prophetic discourse in the Latter-day Saint past, and he specifically compares and contrasts the language of the 1886 revelation that comes with a sort of "thus saith the Lord," versus the more bureaucratic and legalistic language of Wilford Woodruff's 1890 manifesto that basically assures the federal government and others that polygamy would no longer be practiced by Latter-day Saints. And he says he doesn't do this to sort of rank which one is better, which one's more authoritative, but rather suggests that these are best thought of as two genres aiming at similar uptakes, written, used towards similar ends, just two different ways of attempting to do the same thing. And that same thing is to answer the question, what is to be done in moments of crisis, in moments of confusion, in moments of change? And then lastly, your essay shifts our attention from the revelation itself to J. Reuben Clark's 1933 memorandum that he writes. And you note insightfully, and I know you've covered this on your channel previously, but you note that Clark's denial was rooted actually in his own sort of brand of fundamentalism, right? One that privileged current prophetic authority and thus denied not just the authority of the revelation, but its very existence, right? And so what we have in the 1930s within Mormonism writ large is a battle over these competing understandings of fundamentalism, one that champions polygamy and one that is adamantly anti-polygamist.
Yeah, I need you to summarize all my written work. I think you sum it up a lot better than I can. To go back to a few of the points that you made before, what I really appreciated in Seth Perry's analysis of comparing the 1886 Revelation and the Woodruff Manifesto was that those same disputes were taking place within the Quorum of the 12. And
Exactly.
I mean, I was shocked by some of the records within the Quorum of the 12 at the presidency meetings where they're debating about which one has more authority. So getting into those scriptural accounts is quite crucial. And I really love the quote that you gave from Christina's paper about how these documents haunt us and should help us reframe whose voices were prioritized. And of course, Marty Bradley is just a legend within the field. And she starts out her essay saying, I wish I was in a classroom to draw these things out on a board. And boy, I wish we were, because she's a master teacher. So connected to responding to this news, the availability of these long disputed documents, what do you see as the role of scholars in general, and like an academic journal in particular, in shaping public discourse around these contemporary concerns?
Well, that's a really good question, and one that I continually think about as an editor of a scholarly journal. And it might sound funny to those of your viewers and listeners who are not familiar with the standard timelines of academic publishing, but it's something of a miracle that we were able to publish this roundtable, to get this in print within 6 or 7 months of its release by the church in June. And that's a shout out to my son Oscar there. That is obscenely quick for academic journals. Each issue of JMH, just to put this in perspective, is, after being peer-reviewed, revised, line-edited, and copy-edited, sent to the press 4 months in advance of when it's going to when it goes into print. And I usually have articles and issues lined up about a year in advance of when they finally show up. Now, thankfully, there was just enough space in this issue where we could insert this roundtable, and I was delighted to do it because I want the journal and academic journals to serve that function of providing perspective, right? Commentary on current events when they relate to the past. But I'm also glad for the slowness of the academic publishing process. Readers hoping to find hot takes on the Revelation are probably going to be disappointed when they open up the journal, right? Scholarship is slow. It's deliberate. It's collaborative. And though this roundtable was a bit more rushed, I'm still proud that it offers, I think, thoughtful and considerate perspectives from well-qualified historians who have been studying the subject material, not just for a couple of hours, right? Not just sort of flying off the cuff and responding to something, but who have been studying this subject material for years and are thus prepared to work on kind of these careful, deliberative analyses.
Yeah, I often emphasize that what you see in like these videos that I do on YouTube, they're just the meeting point of two vast fields of discourse. That behind me, these videos are only possible because of the years put in by scholars on these materials upon which I'm trying to summarize and explain and engage, and the work I do on my own. And then you see the short summary here. And what I really hope is that then leads to people going off in their own field of discovery where it expands and reading these detailed work. We can't understand these broader lessons without digging into the minutia, and that's where slow, deliberate, careful scholarship comes in. So very brief for the audience, what else are they going to find in this latest issue of Journal of Mormon History, which is why they should subscribe to or become a member of Mormon History Association, which comes with a journal subscription?
Yeah, so you can apply for membership or become a member and gain a subscription at MormonHistoryAssociation.org. I encourage everybody to do so. Each issue of JMH has, sometimes we feature roundtables. We always feature original articles of scholarship, and this one in particular has 3 articles of original scholarship. One is an analysis by historian Matt Grove from the Church History Library, looking at the construction of the St. George Temple and the introduction of proxy endowments for the dead in temple work in the 19th century. It's really insightful. I thought I knew enough about that, but I learned a lot from Matt's article. And then we have what I think of as a really fun piece from historian Nathan Reese, who looks at the images used in the earliest issues of the 19th century Mormon periodical, The Juvenile Instructor. None of these images were produced by Latter-day Saint artists. They were borrowed from other publications of the day. And Reese argues that they were converted to Mormonism, right? That the images themselves were, that editor George Q. Cannon converted these to Mormonism, that he made them have sort of Mormon meanings by using them alongside Latter-day Saint focused articles, right? And then lastly, one that I'm really, really excited about is from Baylor PhD student Hovan Lawton. This is one of, if not the first, sort of detailed analysis of Latter-day Saint life and experience in Central America. And Hovan's done incredible archival research, but also oral history. Some of his own family members come from Central America, from El Salvador, I believe. And so he looks at El Salvador and Guatemala and the Latter-day Saint experience there in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and offers some really insightful experiences that show both the sort of the reach of the international church, but also the local ways in which that church experience was mediated. And then one last thing that's included in this issue that is a reprint from a much earlier issue is an essay by MHA's founding president and the first editor of the Journal of Mormon History, Leonard Arrington, that looks at the early history of MHA and the Journal of Mormon History. And I've been reviewing earlier issues since I became editor and just learning a lot in that process. And so hopefully that's interesting to a lot of readers as well.
Yeah, I was just reading the Nathan Reese, is that the last name? Yeah, his article last night, and I just love the idea that Latter-day Saints were not just posthumously baptizing, past celebrities. We're posthumously baptizing these images that appear in periodicals, so they now fit more names. It's a very Mormon exchange. So I strongly recommend people going to become an MHA member, especially now that the MHA program is about to come out for the June conference in Vegas. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for joining with me, Chris, to talk about this roundtable.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you having me on.
I hope you found that interview useful, especially taking a behind-the-scenes view about how scholarship is done and the role that scholarly journals like Journal of Mormon History play in the broader community. Now, before I get to the next topic, I thought I would summarize or at least bring up some key points from my essay in the forum, talking about J. Reuben Clark's fundamentalist reasons for rejecting Mormon fundamentalism. So in 1933, J. Reuben Clark, who had spent his adult career outside LDS leadership, joins the First Presidency, and one of the first crises he has to face is this growing polygamous movement. It was also quite personal. He was a cousin to the Woolies, including the key John and Lauren Woolley, who were some of the central figures in the fundamentalist movement. And so I trace how J. Reuben Clark and other church leaders are responding to that growing fundamentalist movement, and how this 1886 revelation gets compounded in the broader original stories of fundamentalism, how it was tied to other supernatural events like John Taylor's visitation from Jesus Christ and John and Joseph Smith, as well as the ordination of a secret priesthood council. I think I also identify which pamphlet especially perturbed J. Reuben Clark in 1933, when he denounces recent rumors, and I identify it. I talk about Jesse Burke's Events from the Underground Days, this fundamentalist pamphlet, and two reasons why I think this is the pamphlet that especially annoyed J. Reuben Clark. One, we know it's being passed around at the April 1933 General Conference because Heber J. Grant's diary denounced it. Heber J. Grant was the president at the time, and James Talmage, an apostle at the time, got a copy of it. Here you see the title page, the cover image from the pamphlet with James Talmage's stamp showing that it was in his possession. And it was that pamphlet and these stories that prompted J. Reuben Clark to author this, what comes to be known as the Third Manifesto. And I actually argue, contrary to what other scholars have said, that it's the product of Heber J. Grant. I think it's the product of J. Reuben Clark. And reading through that manifesto actually tells us a lot about how J. Reuben Clark views how religion operates, how history works towards religious claims, and how it embodies, ironically enough, a fundamentalist vision of society and religion and history. fundamentalists and the lowercase fundamentalists, meaning anti-modernists. So in reality, what happens is a clash between the fundamentalists, the polygamist group, and J. Reuben Clark's own type of fundamentalism. And that's what I tried to outline in my essay. So we've now talked about how the scholarly community has responded to this revelation's availability. I've talked about my own scholarly contribution to that discourse. Now let's talk about how the fundamentalist community has responded. Because remember, the fundamentalist community has not only argued that this revelation was in existence, but that it was a core part of their movement's truth claims. So I wanted to have someone from that community on to briefly talk about it. So I'm very privileged to have Moroni Jessup. Moroni was raised LDS and then throughout his adulthood came to identify with several different fundamentalist groups, although he had some tense relations with them, in part because he would speak out against their racist and misogynist practices. So though a fundamentalist himself, he has called out the abusive parts of these various traditions, including underage and arranged marriages. And at one point, he was excommunicated from the Apostolic United Brethren for his denunciation of their racism. You might be familiar with Moroni Jessup because he has a phenomenal TikTok account, Punk Rock Polygamist, and he's also done a number of important interviews where he talks about his life story. So all of that out of the way, let's talk with Moroni about how his community has been responding to this revelation's availability. All right, I'm now very pleased to be joined by Moroni Jessup, who is kind enough to talk about how the fundamentalist community is responding to the availability of this document. So, Moroni, as someone who spent quite a bit of time in the fundamentalist community, you converted, as you were a young adult or an adult. When did you first hear about this revelation, and what role did this revelation play within your circles?
Well, I heard about it when I first started studying fundamentalism around the age of 19 or 20. And, it was actually one of the first things that I studied. It was located in the pamphlet called The Four Hidden Revelations, which is a fundamentalist publication. And the 1886 revelation, in combination with the stories of the 8-hour meeting, is central and key to the fundamentalist belief.
Yeah, so I imagine was it annoying when you would hear from the LDS Church leaders or maybe apologists that there is no such revelation? How did you respond to those, reactions and defenses?
Oh, absolutely. The LDS Church had an entire cadre of historians whose sole purpose was to discredit fundamentalists, people like Max Anderson, and those books were, we read those books as well so that we could know the arguments against it, but they were pretty adamant that it didn't occur, and of course that caused frustration.
Yeah, in Christina Gagliano's article that's in this Journal of Mormon History Roundtable, she talks about Leonard Arrington encountering stories about this revelation, and you can almost see his agitation as he learns more, because he starts learning that the church is actively trying to deny the revelation's validity, while at the same time, he and the historians who are digging into it are becoming more and more certain that the revelation actually existed, even if they didn't have access to it. So now flashing forward to the summer of 2025, what was your reaction when you saw the revelation finally made public, which was a de facto acknowledgement that it existed?
Well, I think that it was a surprise. First of all, I still to this day am wondering the intention behind making it public. But I think for a lot of with some fundamentalists, there was some gloating, kind of like an "I told you so" kind of attitude. But I think that most of us were kind of like, yeah, we've been telling you all along that this revelation exists, and see, it exists.
So do you think there's going to be any change going forward with the community? Do you think that the revelation is going to take added significance, or is it not a change at all because the community has long acknowledged its existence and its central role?
I don't think that it's much of a change for fundamentalists. I'd say that my opinion is that the church is having, church members are having a harder time reconciling the revelation than fundamentalists are. I've seen a lot of, trying to explain it away, for instance, referring to the new and everlasting covenant of marriage as not polygamy, but regular marriage. I've seen them offer explanations as to why, it's not about polygamy, I guess you might say.
Yeah, I think, and as this longer video, I'm discussing about how the ghost of polygamy continues to haunt the LDS tradition, and that the fundamentalist communities are a living reminder of a past that the LDS Church is often wanting to forget. So thank you so much for joining, Moroni. I think it's important as we discuss these documents that are claimed by a variety of communities and directly affect these communities. It's important to actually listen to those communities as well. So thanks again, Moroni, for giving me a few minutes to talk about the revelation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you found that interview with Moroni useful. Thanks again to him for giving me some of his time. I also hope you found this video useful. I tried to accomplish two things. One, I tried to highlight the latest scholarly interpretations of the John Taylor document, both from the Academy and the impacted communities. I also tried to demonstrate the importance of scholarly analysis. That it's one thing to have hot takes online on various social media platforms or on YouTube, guilty as charged, but it's another thing to have the depth and measured and calculated reactions from scholars who have the tools and the time to really understand these texts within their broader context. So in a world of democratized knowledge, it's still important to recognize the depth of quality academic historical work, even if it's not all that flashy. I face this dilemma all the time, actually, and I hope to make it clear that even if you enjoy my videos, I hope it's just a gateway to actually engaging other scholarly work, which is especially all the more important in our era of information. I'm able to do these shorter videos, short in the sense of a history nerd, these shorter videos, because there are mountains of decades of scholarship that historians have spent time on that I'm trying to summarize, and I hope that now will prompt you to go read that scholarship yourself, which is why I often have links to the works in the video description, where I try to point you to more information. We need to celebrate these scholarly contributions. And so I want to close this video also with a pitch. So the Journal of Mormon History, which includes this roundtable I've been discussing, is the publication of the Mormon History Association, an association that goes back 60 years now to Leonard Arrington and other historians, creating the first academic community devoted to studying Mormonism's past. I am very privileged this year to serve as the president of MHA. In fact, you'll notice over my shoulder, I have the presidential seer stone. There's a fun story that I may talk about at some point. My teenage daughter added googly eyes to it because in her compelling argument, a seer stone should be able to see you back. And one of my roles in being president of MHA is putting together their annual conference. And the annual conference of the Mormon History Association will be taking place this summer, the first weekend of June in Las Vegas. That's right. The MHA is going to Vegas, baby, and it's going to be a lot of great stuff, lots of great presentations, including, if you are interested in more analysis from measured, smart, brilliant scholars, Chase Kirkham, who's a former editor with the Joseph Smith Papers Project and is currently working on a volume of John Taylor sermons, will be giving a conference paper on this very topic. And there are lots of other topics on lots of other talks on all these hot issues that you might be interested in. So I'll have a link in the video description where you can become a member of Mormon History Association, which gets you access to the journal. And I also encourage you to attend the conference. It's a lot of fun. So also, to highlight the great work of Mormon History Association and to spread their knowledge, the editor of Journal of Mormon History, Christopher Jones, has agreed to give out a free copy of Journal of Mormon History. So if you want to enter the sweepstakes to get that free copy, please comment in this video, in the video comments, add what stood out to you, what was interesting, what questions might you still have, and then I will randomly select one of those comments and I will send you a copy of the Journal of Mormon History. In fact, I'm going to send out two because I have an extra copy and the editor has an extra copy. So we'll be giving out at least 2 copies of Journal of Mormon History. History has never been more relevant than it is right now. And just digging into the John Taylor revelation is one example of that. I'm grateful that so many of you recognize that as well. Otherwise, you would not be listening to me drone on about it. But I think these conversations are important, and historical scholarship provides a perspective that's much needed in our world with massive misinformation.